For the last video in the Marion series, we are going to take some areas and locate those on the floor plan. And also we're going to show you how to publish, that is basically print, your sheets, which would be the A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, and A6 sheet layouts. Now those are what we consider the deliverables, and we want to make sure before we print them that we've got it about as close as possible to what we want to deliver to our client. Now at different phases of the design and during the construction, the amount of information needed to supply the different players in the construction process might vary. Of course, when you first start out, a conceptual design might be sufficient, but by the time you get ready for construction documents and submission for permit, you need to have a very, very detailed and documented set of drawings. So the first thing you're going to do before you go ahead and print or publish, in this case, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a quick review. I had noticed a couple of things previously that we may want to modify a little bit. So what we want to do is let's take a look at a couple of items that we have in here. Let me go back to model space here, and let's see what we've got going on right here. Alright, so let's take a look at this, and just looking at the site plan in general, the first thing I want to do is I want to add a note for the dock. And I also noticed this arrow right here. It's obviously on a layer that we did not turn off and we don't want on the site. It has to do with the slope, which the information that we want, including the arrow, would be on the floor plan. I'm just going to go ahead and open up the viewport and highlight it to see what we're on. So it's definitely not on the layer that we want. We want that on the floor layer to begin with, so that was a correction of an error. So all we have to do is highlight it, and let's go ahead and change that to ANO note floor, and as you see right there, it's changed automatically. Now something as simple as the dock, all we got to do is copy this element right here, and let's go ahead and pull that back to there, and I'm going to change the name. Dock. My cap locks is on for that. And let me go ahead and pull that out of the way. Let's go ahead and close the viewport, and let's go to our major view here. Alright, so this looks pretty good. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead next and go to the A2 floor plan. This is the sheet or the layout with the layers turned on that we're going to be producing our areas on. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and I'm going to be using this font to calculate the areas, while at the same time I'm going to be using this for the title for it. So let me go ahead and let me copy this over, and let's get the line 2, and I'm going to copy that with my ortho on. I'm going to copy that maybe up to here. You can always move that a little bit over. So right now I'm still in paper space, you can tell. I'm going to go ahead and move my north arrow a little bit to the right. A lot of this has to do with composition. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to change the layer on this. Right now it's on a general annotation title block layer. And I'm going to go ahead and change it to my, let's go ahead and change this to the ANO note floor. So we are in the correct layer now. And what I want to do is I want to push that back into model space. So I'm going to open up model space. Actually, I'm going to leave it closed first. That was correct. I'm going to highlight those two elements. And I'm going to go to the Home tab, to the Modify panel, and I'm going to go right here to that icon. We've used it before to change space. And right now, as you can tell, with the viewport open, it is now in model space as opposed to this, which I cannot grasp, or this. So that's exactly where I want it to be, and it's in the right font and the right size. The only thing I really want to do at this point is let's go ahead and change with cap locks off. I'm going to change the title, and I'm going to change it to areas. I'm going to zoom back out. So I'm going to type in region so we get it the right color. And I'm going to go ahead and copy this element down to here. And I'm going to begin to edit this. So the areas that I'm going to list up, and this time I want caps lock, is the first one, and it's a little bit different from what they showed in the book. If we go back to our Marion markups, you take a look at down in here, they have their areas, but they called it heated, garage, patio, porch. What I want to do is I want to go ahead and change this from heated to living. I'm going to do in parentheses, I'm going to do AC, and there's square feet. I can just use SF for that. Then the garage, then the covered, we call it covered porch. I might change the name to covered patio. I find it a little bit more elegant. And then the front, we're going to call it a covered entry. So we're going to go ahead and take the square footages of those. I'm going to show you how to do that. Let's go ahead and minimize this right into there. So let's go ahead and change these. And I am going to put, for this, I'm going to put living, space, AC. I'm going to go over a little bit to the right and maybe do 4 values here. Let's make this a little longer so that it doesn't jump to the next one. And then a space and SF for square feet. I'm going to go ahead and do the next one. And let's do this one as garage. And we may change this from 4 to something else in there. Space SF. We could always do that in lowercase if you want. Then we're going to go ahead and covered patio. I got to remember to change it in our drawing. And I'm going to go ahead and just do 4. We're going to have to fix this so that we can stretch it out a little bit more. The last one, which is a partial, is going to be covered entry, SF. And the last one, I'm going to skip 1 additional space and put in total. And of course, that's going to be a slightly different value. I'm going to go ahead and take caps off, see what that looks like. I like that better. So let's go ahead and do SF on all of these. What we want to make sure is that eventually when we finish this, that they're all going to line up. It's easier. It looks better in terms of tabulation forms and so on. So let's go ahead and click that. And I'm going to go ahead and zoom out a little bit. And that's looking pretty good. I may want to modify it just a little bit if I think that the size or the dimension is a little too big. I might go ahead and adjust it to maybe the size of some of this font right in here. But I think for now it looks pretty good. In most cases we want to have information like that. I don't mind lining it up. I think that looks great. So maybe what I'll do here is I will go ahead and I need to get into paper space to move my north arrow because it is in paper space. And I'm going to go ahead and do F8 right in here. I'm going to put it right up here to the side. That's going to give me a little bit more room. Let's go back into model space by double clicking, and I can pull this out a little bit. And maybe what I can do now is in each one of these, I can have it line up a little bit better with some of the other values that we've got there. So that's looking great for the information that we're going to be putting. I may want to shift this back over a little bit one way or the other so I can get my north arrow back out into here. So let's start and let's take a look at what we can do for areas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and since we are going to be doing the areas in the floor plan, I'm going to create a general discipline layer. So it'll start with G, and it's going to be GA areas dash floor. So let's go ahead and let's start one right in there. I'm going to do capital G space. I'm going to do areas. Well, let's call it Anno space areas. And to stay consistent with what we've been doing so far, let's go ahead and just call it floor. Since most of our Anno is purple anyways, I can do it in purple. We could do this in a slightly different color so that it stands out. Let's go ahead and let's do cyan. And continuous is fine. And the line weight, Let's cancel that out. We're going to go ahead and make it the same as the rest of the annotations. We're going to change that to 0.15. Now it really doesn't matter too much because of the font we've selected for it, but we're going to make sure that actually, you know, this isn't the annotation. We already have the annotation in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and modify. I'm going to change this to areas floor, because this is how we're actually going to do the areas. And let's do it something maybe a little bit brighter than the cyan. Let's go ahead and let's do it also yellow. We could even do it in red if we wanted to, and do OK. Make sure it's the current layer, and let's go ahead and I'll show you how we normally do areas. We take it to the outside of the wall for the living areas, and for areas such as the covered porch, we take it on where the supports are around the perimeter. We do not include the overhangs in most cases. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start our areas. I'm going to go to my polyline, and all I really need to do is to start going around to the locations that I want. Now, if you can see this better, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and undo right there. I'm going to go ahead and go and do this in, I could do it in model space, and I could freeze some layers. Let's go back to floor plan. I think that'll be a little bit better to do. Let's go ahead and go to polyline. And we will follow that line as we go around. Make sure you hit the right points to calculate all the interior that we want to do on that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to isolate. I'm going to undo that because I hit the wrong point. Go up to here. Go all the way down to here. Carry it across. I'm working my way around. And right here, what I'm going to do is, since this is split between what we call living AC area and garage, I'm going to go ahead and, using my object snap, I'm going to bring that over to there. And I'm going to include that wall as part of my calculations. Go to perpendicular here. And finish off by closing off my polyline here. So now when I click my polyline, I've got a perimeter showing exactly where the living area is, or what we call AC. Now I'm going to do pretty much the same thing back here. I'm going to start with where the bearing is above for the roof and where my columns are, and I'm going to go around this way, come around to there, and close up, and there we go, right in there. And I've got two more to go. I've got the garage, and for this I'm going to start here using the same principle. I'm going to go ahead and click to there, click to there, close that off, and last but not least I'm going to do the covered entry. It should be a relatively small square footage, and that is closed. Now the next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take those areas that we've calculated out. So let's say first open up our viewport so that I'm in model space, and make sure that I click on the right area in here and go to properties, and we can take a look at our square footage. There is 2294.5. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to go down to our living area and change the value here. I'm going to go 2294.5. Find the garage area. So let's find that perimeter that we've got right in here. Let's go to properties, and that happens to be 483.5 also. Let's do the covered patio. Now if you notice, I'm calling it covered patio here, and it's still called covered porch in the back here. So let's go ahead and let's go zoom into here. I'm going to go ahead and change that first. Let's call that patio. Make sure cap locks is on patio. And let's highlight that perimeter that we've done. Let's find our properties. 237.3. Go back down in here. 237.3. You want to save? Yes, I do. And let's do the last one, which is our covered entry. And let's find out the properties and the area for that. 56.0. 56.0. And let's go ahead and just use our calculator now and add these up so that we can get the total. Let's try 2294.5. Plus 483.5. Plus 237.3. Plus 56 is equal a total of 3071.3. So let's go ahead and open that up. Let's see what's going on with us in here. Okay. Quick look. 3071.3. 3071.3 square feet. That looks great. Alright, let's go ahead and line these up so it looks a little bit better in terms of sort of a tabulated format. And let's kick this one back one. Couple right into there. I'm going to go ahead and back this up. I don't mind if it's directly underneath one. Now what I also may want to do is go ahead and change the spacing in between these. So I'm just going to change the line spacing. Just pull them in just a little bit closer together. So I'm going to go to line spacing right in here and just going to go under more and paragraph. Okay, I think that looks pretty good at 0.85. Let's try 0.0. X and do OK. That looks good. Okay, so let's zoom out a little bit. Double click out in here. I'm going to open it up and I'm just going to move it a little bit to the left. Let's move it to about here. I'm also going to move this guy, the elevation tag, and I'm going to go back into paper space. Zoom out, double click outside of it, and I'm going to line this up. Again, it's kind of important sometimes, at least in terms of how the plans or the drawings are going to read, to make sure that all of these are lined up the way you want to. Now, that works for me in terms of bringing this back out over to maybe about here. And you know what? I even get a little tedious with this, but I wouldn't mind lining up those arrows together with that line. That just looks a little bit more organized, and obviously this is in the way, so I'm going to open up my viewport. And I'm going to grab that guy and let's drag him over here just a little bit out of the way. Go ahead and double click outside. Let's zoom extents. And that looks great. We've got our tags. Everything here looks good. Let's see what our site plan looks like. Okay, we've got all the information that we want there. I'm going to close out that viewport. There we go. That looks great. I carried over. There's my dock name. This looks good. Zoom extents again. Let's just double check before we send these things to print. Okay, that's looking good. Elevation is looking good, both sheets, A4 and A5. And our wall section looks excellent. So let's go back to the A1 site plan. What we can begin to do now is we can begin to publish this, which is just a fancy name for print it. Now we're going to print to PDF, and then what we're going to do is we're going to combine the PDFs into one. So the first thing that we got to do is we got to go ahead and make sure that we are in paper space and that we are going to be printing to that. So looks like we're pretty well set. We are in paper space. We've got our A1 site plan layout highlighted here. Let's go ahead and go up to our icon up in here for plot. Left click that. We're going to get a pop-up window, and what we want to make sure is that our settings are what we want to do. Now, some of these came out from the template that we had, but there's some other things that we have modified as we want. So if you take a look at it, this is what we want. We want monochrome CTB. All of these are what we want to do in here. Our printer is a DWG to PDF printer. It's a virtual printer. Our paper size is correct. Our layouts look correct. When you're in paper space, you want to print the size of the paper that you have. This is literally a 24 by 36 paper, and only the viewport has been shrunk to a scale such as 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch per foot. So this has to remain like that. Let's go ahead and let's do a preview, and let's see what that looks like. So that looks excellent. As you can tell, our viewport lines disappear because they're in a def point layer or a no print layer. So that's one of the things that we can do to correct that, so that even though you see them in your layouts and so on, once you do your print preview, you will not. With all this done, that looks excellent. We've got our correct names in here. Let's go ahead and click plot. And what it's going to do, it's going to ask you where are you going to place it. Now I have created a location to place our PDFs, so I'm going to go there. And now your location should be different obviously than mine. Let's go ahead and I'm going to go to where I have my Marion project, and I've created a folder in there called Marion PDF. It's open, and there is going to be the first one that I want, the Marion A-1 site plan PDF. That's exactly what I want. I'm going to go save. And it's going to give you a little note in here that says plot is complete. And this now is your PDF, and we can review it. Now, when you look at this, you're going to see a lot of lines that maybe aren't clear enough, aren't, clear. A lot of that has to do with your graphics card and how that looks. So as an example, if I was to zoom in here, even though this looks all faded, and we take a look at some of this, when you start zooming in, it starts looking a lot better. So when you print this, and if you were to print a 24 by 36 inch sheet or an 11 by 17 reduced scale test print, you're going to see these lines as more solid lines than anything else. So this looks great. That's exactly what I wanted it to look like. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. And I'm going to go to the second sheet. Now that looks great. I'm ready to go with that one. It's got all the information that I wanted in here. The only thing I don't like is the fact that if I was to open the viewport, remember when we just created our latest layer here, which was G areas floor? I don't want that showing. So what I'm going to do is, even though that's going to show, I could either isolate those, or I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to change that layer, and let's see where we have it in here. G areas floors. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn it into, this is my plot icon right here. I'm going to turn it into a no plot layer. So I'm going to close that out. So even though we see it right here, okay, and I could either do that, or I can actually just go into here, and on the viewport I can go ahead and freeze it, and that turns it off in the viewport, which leaves my hidden line. So double safe, I'm turning it off, and I'm also turning it into a no plot layer. So I'm going to zoom back out, close my viewport, zoom extents. I'm ready to print. Let's go ahead and close this out. Go back to the print icon. Everything looks great as how it should be. Let's go ahead and do a preview before we do anything else. That looks good. Right click, plot. It's going to default this time because you've already located that folder to there. Just double check the name, go ahead, save, and it's going to be a preview. Now, once again, you look at a lot of this information, you're saying, why is it coming out so faded? Now, this doesn't have to do with transparencies that we did. As I mentioned before, if you zoom in, a lot of that is going to be just thinner lines that, because of the graphic representation or the graphics card that you have, don't come out. That actually looks very good, and if we were to print that, it would print very well. So that looks great. We can now close this one out. Let's go to the next one, and we're going to do this for each one. In another video, I'll show you how to do what we call batch plots, where it creates, you can select all of the plots that you want and do them all in one shot. But for now, for this Marion, we're going to go ahead and do them one at a time. Go back up to the icon. If you see anything that you want to change at this point, this would be the time to do it, not after you print and then have to print again. So let's go ahead and go to that icon. Check your printer plotters. Everything looks great right in there. Always do a preview so you can give it a last shot. Okay, a lot of people end up putting some of their viewports not on a depth point layer, so it ends up showing and they end up having to replot. This looks fine though. I'm going to go ahead and go to plot. Marion 3, found the folder again. Let's go to save. Okay, that looks great. Let's go ahead and close that out. We got 3 more to go. There's our elevations. Print. Settings are good. Preview. That looks great. Plot. A-4 elevations. Save. Let's go ahead and close that out. Go to A-5. Looks good. Preview. Plot. I'm going to put it right in there. Go ahead and close it out. And last but not least, let's go ahead and do our wall section. Yes, let's go ahead and preview. A-6 wall sections, plot, and save. And there's our last one. So let's go ahead and close this out. I'm going to go back to my site plan. I'm going to leave my drawings opened in here. But the next step that we want to do is, I don't want to print that again, but I'm going to go ahead and save the drawing. If you have a little asterisk next to it, it means you haven't saved recently, so please give it an automatic. You could wait for the automatic save, but you should also be saving after extensive commands like printing or making huge changes on your drawings or modifications that impact a lot of different things. So what you're doing also when you're saving is you're creating a backup file. And you can also, in the settings, you can tell it how many backup files you want. So if you do make a mistake and you need to regenerate a drawing from the past, you can do it. And I'm always saving probably every 5th command or something like that. It only takes a second to do it. Our last step is to go to the folder where these are, and what we want to do is we want to unite them into one. So I'm opening that up. I'm going to go ahead and open up the first one right here. And what I want to do is, the first thing I want to do is, I really don't even need to save it as, but depending on the software that you have, this is Adobe Acrobat Pro. I'm going to go right here to where it says Combine, and I'm going to click on that, and it says Merge Files into a single PDF. So I'm going to click on that, and then what it says is drag and drop files to add them, and then arrange them in the order that you want. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. and I'm going to pull the next one in. So A3, A4, A5, and A6. I've got all 6 files in there. So what I can do is I can actually just come here and move it down to the bottom. Let's go ahead and do the same thing with each one of these. We want that one right there. Now each software might be a little bit different on how to do this. We go ahead and move that one down, and then finally let's go ahead and move that one down. That looks great. I'm going to go ahead and right here combine files. So it's taking all 6 of them, and what it's asking for is to save it as. The default is a binder, but I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to change that to Marion. Now if you had a project number, you might precede that with a project number. And what I always like to do is definitely put a date attached to it of when you printed these out. That's important because you may go through a whole series of iterations and submittals, and that is one way to basically identify when this set was produced. So I'm going to go ahead and do 07. I'm going to do, let's do 05. Let's do 06. 2020. Marion 06 2020. Let's put a dash in there. And let's make sure we are in the right folder. So I'm going to go to the folder where the PDFs are. Marion PDF. There's where it's going to be saved. And I'm going to go save. And if you take a look at up here on the top left, the name of it has changed. If we go here to the pages, there are our pages: site plan, floor plan, roof plan, the 2 elevation sheets, and then finally the wall section. So when you complete this, then you can distribute it to all the different locations that may want it, the contractors, the owners, the permits, whoever or the consultants are the players in the project that are going to be doing. So this actually concludes the video series for the Marion. We will be continuing a different series for a couple of other projects that we're going to be doing.